Before we get started with this video, I have another announcement on the business side of the house. So, I've offered apparel in the past, and I'd never liked the idea of having these things in stock, as you sell so many of them, or at least from my perspective and my experience, you sell so many and then you end up with clothing sitting on the shelves that just doesn't move, and nobody likes having stock sit there for any length of time. So I finally found a way to provide high quality merchandise to you guys at affordable prices and with quick shipping and not having to have a bunch of stuff on the shelf. So what we have right here is the first of a few designs that we'll be releasing very shortly, and by the time this video is live, these and a couple other designs will be live on my website. So this one here is navy blue, have a high quality printed BPA logo, and then this is the BP Autosports fabrication shirt. So on the back side we have the phonetic spelling of fabrication, and then two definitions, one actual and one what fabrication actually is. So if you guys like this shirt, you can get it now on my website, and along with a couple of other designs and more to come in the near future. So I thank you guys very much for your support with the keychains, and hopefully you guys like these shirts that I have now and that will be coming out in the near future. So if you want to pick one up, visit bpautosports.net, and you can find the merchandise tab under the shop online section of the website. So all that will be linked below, either in the description or a pinned comment, and you can go on there, check out what I have, and pick up one for yourself if you like the design and it speaks to you. So now that the business side of the house is squared away, let's go ahead and get started with the actual video. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So we're going to work on the Mark II again today, and off camera I've done a pretty significant amount of work on this thing. I went through and took out as much of the old seam sealer as I possibly could, done all of the engine bay prep that I could, and even had a painter buddy of mine come over to do a consult for me to make sure that I hadn't really screwed anything up in the process of doing this. So at this point in time, we are ready to finally start putting some actual new materials down rather than removing old things any longer. So what we're going to do to start is to come in and do some rust prevention and rust maintenance on this thing, as we have a few areas like on this frame rail here where there's some rust and some pitting all around the battery tray right here, and then little areas like the old spot welds, something like this right there, different areas like that that will require a little bit of attention before we can put actual primer down and actual paint. So the one big area is down here on the core support, where I'll actually have to replace this portion of metal, and I don't know if we'll get into that in this video or in another one, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So what we're going to do the rust prevention and the rust maintenance is use some good old-fashioned POR 15. And I've used this before, I think actually on this car when my dad and I were initially building it, and the stuff's awesome. It's a great rust preventative, it's a great rust preventer, and when you're doing a semi-restoration deal like this, especially where there already is a little bit of rust at play, you want to do everything you can to prevent surface rust or medium rust from becoming a bigger problem later on, which that's exactly what POR does. So before I start putting down any of this POR 15, I'm going to come in, swipe these areas with some acetone just to make sure they're nice and clean, and then we can go in, put some POR down, and get this thing to the point where we're ready to do a little bit of Duraglass or Bondo work, and then start priming and painting. So let's go ahead and get to the POR, because it'll take a little bit of time to dry, and then we can move forward from there. The first pass, or the first coat rather, of POR 15 is down on all of the spots that it needed it. So these corners back here, all around the battery tray there, some little surface rust spots all around on both sides of the frame rails, so on and so forth. So I'm going to let this stuff dry for a bit and then come back in, put a second coat on everything, and then at that point in time the POR treatment should be completed and we can move on to actually cleaning and priming this thing. So, a little note, finally got some lights here. It's just a little Husky work light on a stand, 3 LED deals here, and the outside wings are adjustable inward and outward. So this will provide better lighting for you guys, and will provide better lighting for me so I can actually see what I'm doing here. So while I'm waiting for the paint to dry, what I'm going to do is come back here and disassemble this subframe. So I can pull the struts and the brakes and everything else off of this, get it down to just the subframe and just the other corresponding parts here in preparation to take the stuff to be powder coated and prettied up and ready to go back in the car. So hopefully I don't run into any massive issues here with this, but we'll see as I get going with it. Well, that was not too bad. So I have the front subframe right here. I have the sway bar, and I guess they're kind of like tension rods or something like that, with their brackets right there. This still needs to be disassembled, but I'll do that later as I didn't want to get into all of that right now. And we have the lower control arms that the ball joints will need to come out, or I can clean these up myself and just paint them. So I'll have to decide how far I want to take all of this apart, as you know, it would be kind of cool to get the actual sway bar powder coated, but as far as the tension rod brackets, lower control arms, things like that, those may be better off just painted so I don't have to deal with trying to get old ball joints out. And these tension rod deals, they have these rubber bushings or whatever inside of them that may be better off just leaving those be. You know, 40-year-old parts, trying to remove them could very easily end up in catastrophe. But this is all taken apart now, and the other parts, the whole knuckle assembly, or the hub assembly rather, with the struts and everything. Here's the driver's side, passenger side is over there, and everything's apart, and everything is good to go as far as this subframe restoration goes. So now I can lower the car back down, check how dry my POR 15 is, and if it is dry, or at least dry enough where I can put a second coat on, I'll go ahead and do that, and then we play the waiting game for that paint to dry. So the first layer of POR 15 that I put down is still a bit tacky, and I'll need to come in and put a second layer down per their instructions to make everything sealed up the way that it can be with this coating and this paint. So you just have to wait until it dries a little bit more. So it got hot in here, so I put on my new shirt, and it fits nice, it's very comfortable. It's a Next Level shirt. If you guys have ever heard of that brand before, they are my favorite shirts, and that's who I wanted to go with for the new BPA shirts. So we have a few minutes to kill while we wait for all this stuff to dry up, and I can come in and put the next layer down. And I'm not going to start masking or doing anything else just yet, as it doesn't make sense to unless I'm going to mask everything at once. The first coat of POR 15 is dry. We're dry enough to put a second coat down. So this is all good to go. And I have our second spray cap full of POR 15. So let me go ahead, put you guys on a tripod, get the brush and the cap over there, and we can put the second coat, the second application of it on here. And hopefully that will be it in terms of the rust prevention for this. And the second coat of POR 15 is applied to all of the spots that I applied it to in the first place. So I don't have any worry about any of these spots rusting at this point in time. This stuff, if you guys haven't used it before, is pretty magical, and it's truly a rust preventative coating. So all these spots are still wet, obviously. They need to dry, and I need to get out of here for the night. So we'll come back in tomorrow and probably start doing some actual sanding on this thing and see how far we can get with that. But I need to order all of the primers, the seam sealer, the paint, and everything else. So we won't be doing that in this video, but we can still get a little bit more accomplished tomorrow, and I'll see you guys tomorrow to do just that. POR 15 has had a chance to dry overnight, and it's now ready to be sanded. So all the spots got the coverage that I wanted, and now we just need to rough those black areas up a little bit so they'll be willing to accept the primer that will go down on top of them. So I believe the POR 15 can says to use 320 grit on the back of it. I think I saw that somewhere. Yeah. To coat over cured POR 15, scuff the surface with 320 until gloss is dull, then apply coating. So, need to come in with some 320 grit sandpaper, which I bought some of yesterday, and rub all these areas down, and then they'll be ready for primer and then paint after that. So we're going to start the video with some sanding, get that done, and then it will be time to add a little bit of body filler to this. Well, I think I have the sanding done for the POR 15. I'm obviously not a body guy, but I'm doing my best with this, so we'll see how it turns out. But if everything's sanded, and need to come in and do a little bit more touch-up just by hand, but next up will be body filler. And I'm going to put some down on this frame rail right here, and a little bit down where there's this little bit of a bite mark taken out of the strut tower there. So we'll get those couple of things done, and then we'll have to wait for the body filler to dry before it is time to sand that. So let me go ahead and get some filler mixed up, get it applied, and then the waiting game begins. I wasn't too keen with the way that the POR laid down along the top of the frame rail here, so I wire wheeled most of it off, put another first layer down. Once that gets close to tacking up, I'll put down a second layer, and then that will be all good. So I can't put any of the body filler down on the frame rail right now, but I can do this section here and put a little bit in this area right here. So let me go ahead, mix some body filler, and get these two areas filled up and ready to be sanded and ready to be finished prepped. The new layer of POR 15 and the body filler are both applied and they're drying now. I don't need to wait for that to all cure before I can go ahead and make any more progress with this thing. So it's late now and I need to get out of here, and I think we're going to end the video there. So we are almost at the point of putting new materials down on this engine bay, as far as primer and paint and seam sealer and all of those things. And I actually placed a big order for all those things last night, and they should be arriving later this week, and then we can make some really good progress and finally get this thing at least primed and very close to being able to be painted in the next episode. So we have that to look forward to. But for right now, we need to wait for all this stuff to dry before I can come in and re-prep those areas and get everything squared away and ready for the new paint. So with that in mind, that'll be the end of this one. And the next episode should be a little bit more action-packed than this one was. But even though we only got a few things done here and kind of some boring background foundational work for paint, hopefully it was still entertaining for you guys, and maybe I did this stuff right, maybe I did it wrong, but I'm learning as I go through, and even if this whole paint job comes out like crap, at least I will have learned what not to do, and I can apply those lessons learned for future paint projects. But without rambling on forever, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. So thank you guys, as always, for tuning in, for watching this Mark II engine bay restoration happen, watching me outside of my comfort zone and learning and playing around with new things and trying to learn new skill sets. And I don't really care if I do things right or wrong on this channel. The most important thing for me is that everybody gets to learn something, and whether that be me doing something right, me doing something wrong, or anywhere in between. It ends up being a net positive for everybody if I put these videos out and everybody has the opportunity to learn from them. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you guys very much for coming along on this ride with me, all these different episodes over these last few years. And I'm still having a blast doing this, and I hope that you guys are still enjoying it as well. So also, don't forget to go on the website. The new shirts, excuse me, new shirts and hoodies are live now. So we have a few options that are available currently, with more upcoming in the very near future, rather, as I have the time to sit down and do some more graphic design. So check those out. If you see something that appeals to you and you feel like purchasing one, I thank you very much for doing so. And hopefully, if none of these speak to you, something in the future does. But with all that being said, and the last bit of the business side of the house wrapped up, that'll be the end of this one. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and I will see you guys in the next episode.